Janine, Rachel, it was 24 hours ago that we were talking about Chris Van Hollen's mission to El Salvador. And I was thinking actually at the time yesterday, which I've thought every once in a while over the last decades, where would Martin Luther King be today? And when I saw Senator Van Hollen in El Salvador yesterday, I thought that's where he would be at least one day this week, as well as other places, not just there, but around the world where Donald Trump is doing so much harm, and here in the United States. But that was a Martin Luther King-like mission, going to El Salvador the way Senator Van Hollen did, and achieving what he has achieved. Last night at this hour, Rachel, I didn't look into my, guessing section of the brain and think, what's he going to be able to do tomorrow? I just lived, very present tense with it and not knowing. And it's so stunning to see this development tonight with him actually making contact. And I think in the process, proving just how easy it is for an American government official to get access to this particular prisoner, and how easy it would be to accompany that prisoner on a flight back to the United States.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I feel like as with all of these things, and as with so much that's going on right now, you don't know in advance what's going to work. And you do a lot of stuff that doesn't work. But the only thing you are guaranteed, the only thing you can definitely know for sure in advance is that if you don't try, it won't work. And Senator Van Hollen down there yesterday, I interviewed him last night. Down there today, we saw him at the prison gates trying to get in and being turned away. But he's there, and he's trying, and he's doing everything he can. And that's how stuff gets done. That's how the world changes.
And when he files his complete report on this, and I'm sure he'll do tomorrow publicly, we're going to know, and the lawyers in the case are going to know, what is involved in getting access to this prisoner. Who facilitates, to use the Supreme Court's word, who facilitates what to get the United States Senator from Maryland into that situation with this person being held as a prisoner in El Salvador? There's a tremendous amount of legally relevant information that Senator Van Hollen now has.
And after that Fourth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals ruling today, that lyrical 7-page ruling today, most of which I just read live on the air, I mean, there is no ambiguity in terms of the administration's responsibilities here. And it is affirmed by the Supreme Court, it is affirmed by the District Court, and reaffirmed by the District Court, and now affirmed by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in an absolutely salutary ruling. I mean, the legal clarity here now matched by logistical clarity produced by Senator Van Hollen forcing the issue by being there in person. This is how you get things done.
And Rachel, your report on the polling, which I hadn't seen that polling, that is extraordinarily negative polling on Donald Trump, on tariffs, on the economy, his overall approval, disapproval, terrible numbers. But the one about immigration seems relevant to what we're seeing tonight. Donald Trump's now losing on that issue in polling, which has normally been a strong issue for him. And it may very well be. We don't know exactly what's moving those numbers, but it appears that most Americans, a significant clear majority, do not like seeing people sent off to a prison in El Salvador as a mistake and then watch the President of the United States joke around with another president in the Oval Office about it and how there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things where Donald Trump has historically done very well in polling, and one is on the economy. And right now, his economic polling numbers are absolutely underwater. He is absolutely tanking with the voters in terms of how they view his stewardship of the economy, for obvious reasons. And the other one is immigration. And the way he does best when you ask about Donald Trump and immigration is if you ask a generic big topic question, like how do you think he's doing on immigration, without getting into the specifics. Even on that, he's underwater on the big topic way that you can phrase that question. But there's other polling that's come out within the last week, which shows that when you go granular, when you ask about the specific policies, the specific things he's doing in terms of going after international students, going after people who don't have criminal records, going after people who have been in this country for more than 10 years, you ask at a granular level, and his polling numbers are absolutely below the floor and dropping fast. I mean, they're terrible. They're as bad as they are for him on anything. And he is just tripling down on this immigration cruelty stuff because he instinctively believes that this is something that people like. And his polling numbers have turned completely around on this subject. And the more the people of this country learn about it, the more horrified they are, the more apparently activated they are to protest against him and resist him and say no to him, but also the more willing they are to tell pollsters that they specifically do not like this, which is the thing he most wants to be known for. And that's just, I mean, when your best stuff is the stuff that's most deeply underwater with voters, start over, man. Start over. Yeah. Different tack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rachel, thank you so much for that interview with Senator Van Hollen last night. That's really the last we heard from him before this breaking news tonight, and we can't wait to hear from him tomorrow, as I hope we will.
Indeed. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks, Rachel. Thank you. Well, as you've heard, the breaking news of the night is that Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen has managed to visit the Maryland resident Kilmar Abrego García, being held in prison in El Salvador in what the Trump administration admits was a mistake. Senator Van Hollen broke the news on Blue Sky, posting, quote, "I said my main goal of this trip was to meet with Kilmar. Tonight, I had that chance. I have called his wife, Jennifer, to pass along his message of love. I look forward to providing a full update upon my return." And of course, the president of El Salvador, in his wise guy mode, mocked the meeting with this tweet saying, "Kilmar Abrego García miraculously risen from the death camps and torture, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador." And then at 9:01 p.m. tonight, President Bukele of El Salvador added this to his tweet, saying, "Now that he's been confirmed healthy, he gets the honor of staying in El Salvador's custody." Well, we will see about that. And of course, the president of El Salvador thinks tonight is a time to be mocking this prisoner that he's holding there and mocking this process. But his words are going to be used in court now in this case, as are Donald Trump's, and they are going to be helpful to Mr. Abrego Garcia, because what the president of El Salvador has demonstrated today is just how easy it is to get this person out of El Salvador, just how easy it is to control his movements in El Salvador and out of El Salvador. This will all be part of the case. J. Harvey Wilkinson III has 41 years of experience as a federal judge. He was appointed by Republican President Ronald Reagan in 1984, and in his 41 years of service, Judge Wilkinson maybe had a right to think he had seen it all. It must be difficult to shock the legal sensibilities of Judge Wilkinson at this point in his career, but he used the word shocking today, a word judges rarely use, to describe what the Trump team has done to Kilmar Abrego Garcia after they snatched him out of his car with his autistic 5-year-old child watching from the back seat, and then sent him to a deliberately cruel and unusual prison in El Salvador, where he may remain tonight. A 3-judge federal appeals court panel unanimously ruled against the Trump administration in the case today. Judge Wilkinson, writing the opinion, said, "While we fully respect the executive's robust assertion of its Article 2 powers, we shall not micromanage the efforts of a fine district judge attempting to implement the Supreme Court's recent decision. It is difficult in some cases to get to the very heart of the matter, But in this case, it is not hard at all. The government is asserting a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process. That is the foundation of our constitutional order. Further, it claims, in essence, that because it has rid itself of custody, that there is nothing that can be done. This should be shocking, not only to judges, but to the intuitive sense of liberty that Americans far removed from courthouses still hold dear. The government asserts that Abrego Garcia is a terrorist and a member of MS-13. Perhaps, but perhaps not. Regardless, he is still entitled to due process. If the government is confident of its position, it should be assured that position will prevail in proceedings to terminate the withholding of removal order. Moreover, the government has conceded that Abrego Garcia was wrongly or mistakenly deported. Why then should it not make what was wrong right? Making what was wrong right was the very purpose in the founders' creation of the American judicial system, which must always include due process of law. In today's unanimous ruling by the appeals court, Judge Wilkinson wrote, "The executive possesses enormous powers to prosecute and to deport, but with powers come restraints. If today the executive claims the right to deport without due process and in disregard of court orders, what assurance will there be tomorrow that it will not deport American citizens and then disclaim responsibility to bring them home?" Here's what Donald Trump said on Tuesday about sending American citizens to that very same deliberately and proudly cruel and unusual prison in El Salvador.
Could we use it for violent criminals, our own violent criminals?
I call them homegrown criminals.
Yes.
I mean, the
homegrowns.
The ones that grew up and something went wrong and they hit people over the head with a baseball bat. We have, and push people into subways just before the train gets there, like you see happening sometimes. We are looking into it and we want to do it. I would love to do that.
Would love to do it. Here's what Donald Trump said today.
We have a great relationship with the president of El Salvador. Will you ask him to release Abrego Garcia so that you can facilitate his return here to the United States? And do you believe he deserves due process here?
Well, I must tell you, I have to refer again to the lawyers. I'll have to do what they ask me to do. I had heard that there were a lot of things about a certain gentleman, perhaps it was that gentleman, that would make that case be a case that's easily winnable on appeal. So we'll just have to see. I'm going to have to respond to the lawyers.
Today, Donald Trump also said this about Mr. Abrego Garcia.
I've heard many things about him, and we'll have to find out what the truth is.
We'll have to find out what the truth is. That's the reason we have due process. That is exactly what the phrase due process means. We'll have to find out what the truth is. Leading off our discussion tonight is Andrew Weissman, former FBI general counsel and former chief of the criminal division in the Eastern District of New York. He's also an MSNBC legal analyst. Andrew, I just want you to collect all of the breaking news developments along with the appeals court opinion today. Donald Trump just saying we'll have to find out what the truth is. We're going to hear that. I assume that line will be in legal filings made by Abrego Garcia's attorneys saying, look, even the president of the United States says we have to find out what the truth is.
So I've been on air. Rachel Maddow has been on air. Now you're on air, all talking about the Wilkinson decision because it's so remarkable. And I'm going to answer your question, but I just want to, for a moment, make sure that everyone understands where we are, because, you know, there's lots and lots of bad news that we cover all the time. But I want to make sure people understand we have talked about Judge Ludig speaking out, and he's done that for quite some time in a heroic way. And then we've had the Wall Street Journal speak out about the Garcia case, the Abrego Garcia case. But now I want to make sure people understand Judge Wilkinson is a revered conservative Republican in a really conservative community